Hello and welcome to Jump To It, brought to you by irishracing.com and Betting Expert. I'm Shane Anderson and we're less than 2 weeks away from one of the greatest racing festivals in the world, and that of course is Cheltenham. It's been brilliant to bring you plenty of the action in the build-up to the meeting. We've certainly got a lot more to come both this week and through next week's show. Well, on today's program we'll be catching up with Harris and Ed Quigley to get their views on all things racing, particularly as we look at trying to target some key contenders for some of the big races. Unfortunately, Paddy Flood can't be with us this week. He'll certainly be back next week, but it's great to welcome one of the biggest names in jumps racing in the UK, and that is trainer Gary Moore, who joins us. Gary, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Good afternoon even, sorry. Yeah.
Lovely to be with you because, well, we've got a lot to talk about, and you do have some of the best horses in your stable as we target the big meeting. But before we get into that, there certainly has been a fair bit of drama over the past week or so around National Hunt Racing after the image of trainer Gordon Elliott was released. From your perspective as a leading participant, how have you viewed the way things have unfolded over the past few days?
Yeah, I just hopefully we get it sorted out sooner rather than later. And it's just an act of stupidity what he did. But it's something I'd rather not talk about, if I'm honest with you, because I think it's enough's been written about it and read about it, and it's now dragging on. It'd be interesting what happens tomorrow.
Let's have a look at your contenders for the meeting, and the biggest name in your stable, I suppose, in many ways, is Goshen, who is one of the most popular horses going around. It was brilliant to see him back to winning ways last start. What did you make of his performance?
Yeah, he did nothing wrong, He couldn't have been more impressive. It was good to see him jump as accurately and as quick as what he did, which he needed to do in the top class field. And, he didn't have another race he's running and won well, and he didn't have a hard race because of it, which is can only bode well. That's why he can run, hopefully, so consistently well, like he did last season.
What type of horse is he like around your stable, around the yard? Is he an easy horse to deal with?
Yeah, he's unbelievable. He's an absolute dude, He eats and sleeps. He's a quiet horse. If you came down tomorrow and said, I want something quiet to ride out, I'd put you on him because apart from his galloping, which is very keen then, but he's an absolute superstar. You couldn't wish for a better person than what he is, to be honest with you.
Gary, it's amazing. Racing's a game of opinions, and there were plenty of people willing to say that he hadn't come back to good form with his first couple of runs of the season. What did you make of those performances before he returned to winning ways last start?
To a certain extent, you'd have to agree with them, and to the naked eye, you can see where they're coming from. Haydock was a mess. I always worry about a horse in their first season, 4-year-old season, 3/4/5 sort of thing season. I think it's tough for him, And I probably minded him too much at home to get him to Haydock, and he probably wasn't fit enough, for flat racing. I was very pleased with his race at Goodwood. I thought he ran well, and couldn't have done any more than what he did. The race was just starting to. He was just starting to finish off his race, and then the race was all over, So that all boded well for me. And then a few little hiccups on the way, and then we'd gone to Cheltenham, which was just a complete waste of time, really, as far as I was concerned. We tried to give him a chance early on. They'd taken the first 2 hurdles out, so they'd gone 3/4 of a mile for a jumper hurdle. Everything was crowded, and it was just the only good thing about it, we learned something.
He's a 5-year-old, so he's still a baby in national hump terms, but we have seen 5-year-olds win this race. In fact, Espoir d'Allen won it in 2019, the Champion Hurdle, and Catch It back in 2008. So it is a race that we can see young horses emerge. Do you feel that he will be mentally ready for the Champion Hurdle?
100%, definitely, because he has got a mind. A very, very good mind. If like I said to someone the other day, he walked around the paddock last year in the Triumph Hurdle like an old chaser sort of thing. Been doing it all his life, and he just couldn't give a monkeys. He was brilliant. And the same when he went to Wincanton the other day. I didn't go to Wincanton, but they said he just walked around like he's a complete professional when it comes to that.
What will you do with him between now and the Champion Hurdle? You've got less than 2 weeks. Is he a horse that needs much more work, or is all the work done for him?
He wants one good piece of work, really, and that should be enough. He's a very, very clear-winded horse. The fact we was able to get him fit enough to do what he did at Wincanton I think, you know, it proves to me I don't need to gallop the life out of him, you know, because he's, like I say, he's pretty clear-winded horse, and you're probably better off going there a little bit, slightly underdone than overdone, if I have to be honest with you.
Well, I don't want to harp on what's happened in the past, but in the Triumph Hurdle last year, it all went wrong at the last jump. We did see a few years back Annie Power have a miserable Cheltenham Festival only to come back 12 months later and win the Champion Hurdle. It can be done.
It can be done, yeah. So let's hope we can emulate what Annie Power did, you know. That would be nice.
Quick question on arrivals, though. Are you on his best form? Do you think he's got the measure of the likes of Epatante, or where do you think he will be, say, for this week, for this year's event, but also in years to come?
I've got massive respect for Epatante and the Irish mare as well. And there's other horses in the race that shouldn't be discounted. I don't think, you know, it's no penalty kick, and I'm well aware of that. You know, he's going to have to be on top of his game and prove, well, we don't really know, is he good enough or not, you know? Okay, you could say them horses underachieved the other day, that he beat Wincanton, but he couldn't beat many easier than he did. So, you know, he'll have to run a little bit better than he did at Wincanton, but hopefully he can do that.
Let's talk about some of your other contenders for the Cheltenham Festival. Nasalem, a 4-year-old son of Dreamwell, showing a good deal of promise. To my eye, he looks a horse that will only keep getting better with time. How do you assess him going into this year's meeting?
I think your eye must be pretty good, because I couldn't agree more with you. You know, like he's a chaser in the making one day, you know. He's just been unlucky. I think he probably bumped into when he got beat by Adagio at Chepstow. I do feel he was beaten by a better horse on the day, on heavy ground. I'd like to give it a go with him again, but I'm probably not going to get that chance. And when he got beaten the other day at Haydock, I think he got beat by a very good horse of Paul Nichols's. You know, I think that if that was in the Triumph, I think that would probably be either favourite or second favourite, because to me, he was very impressive.
Have you made up your mind which direction you want to go with him this year at Cheltenham?
I've made up my mind, but the owners are disagreeing with me, so probably they'll have their way, you know. He'll probably have to carry... I would think he'll end up carrying top weight in the Fred Winter.
Okay, we'll keep an eye out for an announcement in the coming days. Let's talk about 50 Ball, a horse that you've nommed for quite a few races. Are you happy with the progress going into Cheltenham?
Yeah, he's came out of his race pretty good the other day in Newbury. That was last Sunday. And he's in great shape. He's put weight back on, and I couldn't be more happy with him. The ground will nearly tell us where we go, but I would think we'll probably end up in the county hurdle, if I'm honest with you.
What about Beat the Judge going around, if you do elect to run at Cheltenham, is a big price for the Marsh Novices Chase, I should say, currently at 66 to 1. You happy with the progress going into the meeting?
Yeah, he did. He had a run on the flat the other day just to sharpen him up, keep his eye in. He's very, very much a good ground horse, which hopefully we'll get. Well, for some we want good ground, some we want slow ground, you know. But hello.
Yep, we've still got you. So the ground's a big concern for him, is it?
Big concern with him, but I think he might have a problem because he'd probably run the same race as Envoy Allen, you know. So that ain't going to be easy for him, is it? You know.
What about Benatar? Will we see Benatar at Cheltenham?
He won't run there. No, he won't run. No.
Okay, and I see that Botox was also nommed for the Coral Cup, the big handicap hurdle race, currently at 33 to 1. Are you likely to accept there?
I do accept it. He's a horse I really like. He's been trained for the race. He hadn't run since his last run. He's 2 from 3 at the track, where he just seems to run his best races, and hopefully he can produce again on the day. You know, I'd like to think, as long as he stays under 11 stone, he go there with a strong chance.
Other long price runners at the moment, fullback, Vorashan and Natural History. Of your horses, I mean, Goshen's the big gun going into the meeting, but is there one that you also could suggest that we should keep an eye on at a bigger price?
No, because none of them 3 will run.
Okay.
They will all get not taken out. They won't run.
All right, Gary. Great to catch up with you on Jump To It. We wish you well at Cheltenham this year.
Thank you very much.
There's Gary Moore joining us here on Jump To It. Great to get his views on Goshen. Of course, is the big name runner from the stable. A horse that's got so much ability and will now contest the Champion Hurdle, where he does really rate him as a legitimate chance. The 5-year-old trying to become the third horse in the past 14 years to win the Champion Hurdle in that age bracket. It's now time to get some news from the team. It's great to have Stephen Harris and Ed Quigley with me once again. Guys, how have you found the past week from a betting perspective? Stephen, I know you've been in red-hot form and the run is continuing.
Yeah, it's been a good week, Shane. The ground's dried up dramatically in the UK. It suddenly sort of feels like spring. It's good ground. Horses have suddenly come to the fore, and all the yards that have been missing over the last 6 months or so are suddenly back in the groove. So it can be a difficult time for punters, but hopefully we're getting things right at the moment.
Ed, talking weather-wise, you live close to the Cheltenham course. What are things like where you are, and how do you think Cheltenham will play in 2 weeks' time?
Yeah, hi Shane. Yeah, unusually dry. I think yesterday was the 8th consecutive day of zero rainfall in the area. I mean, I'm 2 minutes from the course, and it's been spring-like conditions. There was a little shower last night. The weather going forward is interesting. It's generally pretty much dry again now until the middle of next week to Tuesday and Wednesday. Then there is a band of rain which looks substantial coming in. That will soften the ground up at the moment. I mean, officials at the course are saying it is officially good to soft at the moment. There's rain coming in the middle of next week, which will put it back on the slower side. And then, as always, it's going to be what happens the weekend and the Monday before the festival itself, isn't it, really? And looking at this kind of mixed forecast, some are saying no rain, some are saying a chance of big rain, some are saying a little bit in between. So put it this way, even if we get the upper end of the rainfall, I can't see it riding anywhere near as soft as it was last year or, 4 of the last 5 years. I mean, it was pretty much the times of more or less heavy ground for the opening day of last year's Cheltenham Festival. So I think we're going to be looking at something predominantly good to soft in the going description. And as officials at Cheltenham were saying, depending on what the rain comes in the weekend immediately before, it would be good to soft good in places or good to soft in places. But I think by and large, prospects are looking pretty decent for much quicker ground than what we've been used to over the last few months and the last few Cheltenham festivals, as to be said.
All right, guys, so we certainly have been asking our audience to send through the horses that they like for the Cheltenham Festival, and we will be continually to post them as we do go through the build-up to the festival over the next 2 weeks here on Jump To It. Let's get into some of our big news items, and there's no bigger news item at the moment than what's occurred in Irish racing, of course, with Gordon Elliott. Now having not only some horses being taken away from the stables, but until we get the outcome of the hearing in Ireland, which is scheduled for Friday of this week, tomorrow from where we're filming, that'll have a massive impact on the outcome of Cheltenham with whether or not he'll be able to compete. Of course, with the BHA saying that he won't be able to compete with his horses until a determination has been made by the Irish racing authorities. Stephen, when you're assessing, first of all, I'll get your views on the damage you feel that this has done to the sport, and is it something that racing can recover from fairly quickly?
Yes, I think we will recover from it. It was a shock to start with. Obviously, we're a few days on now, and you feel slightly... I do feel it's sort of two minds about it all. I think the reaction is going to be he's going to get banned probably for a year minimum, maybe more. I think that's probably right. Do I think the BHA should have jumped in and preempted the decision for the Irish racing authorities? No, I don't. Has the reaction on social media and the vitriol from all the usual suspects been the right thing? No, I think it's gone far too far. I think it was a shocking and appalling thing that he did. I think he deserves to be banned for it. Do the stable staff, the owners, all the top class horses he's got, do they deserve to suffer as they are going to? Probably not. It's very difficult, isn't it? I think where racing's got to be careful, we've got a tendency to navel gaze and to shoot ourselves in the foot. And while we must take swift and decisive action over what Elliott's done, which is completely indefensible and wrong, I don't think we want to invite in all the usual suspects who, let's be truthful, don't want racing to happen full stop. I've seen it briefly as I was a bookmaker at the Dogs for 20 years. Towards the end of that era, I was driving to the Derby at Towcester a couple of years ago, and people were spitting in my car as I was going in. Now, that's the sort of people who would ban horse racing, dog racing, fishing, whatever. You've got to be very careful that you don't embrace that and allow racing to be ruined because of the actions of one person who's made a terrible, terrible mistake. It's difficult, but I think we have got to be careful not to go too far.
Ed, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd echo a lot of that. Look, it's pretty been, there's been a lot on this, hasn't there, really? It's been quite drawn out, and obviously we're waiting the hearing at the time of recording the verdict of it. Now, the key angle I'd have is it comes down to kind of trust. It was a stupid photo. It was highly insensitive. It was just silly, the way I'd put it. I mean, essentially, what I'm saying is the trust angle here is the key, isn't it? Suddenly, the media, the racing media, suddenly you trust that everything would be fine in a racing stable and that type of thing wouldn't happen. Now, suddenly, people are questioning, oh, well, when else is this happening? You know, we're seeing other footage, aren't we, of the jockey Rob James jumping on a horse, and there's other rumours started to come out. So there's a trust angle there. There's a trust angle within the racing fraternity. Suddenly, owners are moving their horses away from him. There's, the owners like to think their horse is never going to be put in that situation. And then there's the public angle. Now, I'm in agreement here with Stephen that generally I kind of poo-poo the whole public perception angle, which everyone harps on about. When what we mean by public perception is we mean the people who turn up at Cheltenham, the Derby and Aintree 3 times a year and moan that racing should be banned. When a horse falls in a per temps qualifier at Huntingdon on a Tuesday, they wouldn't give 2 hoots, to be honest with you. And I think there is a danger you try and appease and bend your back too much to satisfy everybody, in the end satisfy no one. That would be on my angle. And I'm going to have a little bit longer on this because I think it's quite an important issue. So as a counterpoint to that, the one thing horse racing has always said and done is if there are issues in racing which the public don't like and the critics do not like, the defence against it has always been that horses get a 5-star treatment. Well, it's very hard to sell the product then on the back of turning on the news or reading a newspaper and seeing high-profile trainers and jockeys jumping all over the back of dead animals. Where is your then defence against those critics? It just fuels the fire for even more widespread media nonsense, doesn't it, really? So, look, it's a tricky one. Someone's got to come up with an answer of what is the right punishment. Someone far more qualified than myself to do that. I agree with Stephen. I think there will be a ban of some sorts. What it is, we'll find out in due course. All I would hope is that draconian measures just don't go into play here. Like at the end of the day, it was a sensitive and highly crass moment from the trainer, but in the sense of whataboutery, there have been a lot worse things that have happened within the sport of horse racing. And for all these people in the echo chamber of social media saying he should be banned for life and give him 10 years and crumble his entire life and future, I think would be a step too far. So all I'm hoping, and I'm presuming will happen, is that an element of proportionality will be given to the ban in regards to what happened. It was a stupid, unforgivable moment, but it was a photo. Let's move on and let's just not let this drag out.
Some of the owners are suggesting that they will stay and support Gordon Elliott, but Cheveley Park Stud, which is one of the biggest operations in the UK, have already announced that they will be moving horses from his stable. And this will have a considerable impact, I think, on the Cheltenham Festival. As we have a look, leading trainer Willie Mullins has gained 3 big-name runners, so Gerhard, Grangsclair West, and also Classic Getaway. And Henry de Bromhead has also gained, arguably the biggest name in the stable at the moment, Envoy Allen, also Ballyadam, Malone Road, Quilixios and Gilly Billy. Stephen, when you're doing the form for Cheltenham, I mean, we're 2 weeks out from the showpiece event. Will movement of horses impact the way that you assess their chances for the race? Because there will be, regardless, there will be some changes to routine, whether it be track work or the training that the horses go through in the morning, perhaps feed supplements or so on. Do you assess that as problematic for how you're doing the form for these horses?
I think these are really unique times, aren't they? I mean, I love a trainer switch. I think it's a really important angle for punters. But so close to Cheltenham, I can't imagine it's going to have a dramatic effect either way, you'd hope. I know that when Paul Nicholls got all the Willie Mullins horses, and actually we're going to talk about one of them later, Lucky One, that runs at Kelso on Saturday, he said it took him sort of 6 months to get any sort of feel for the routine, get them used to the feed, the different environment. And a lot of those horses came over from Mullins to Nichols this season, and they bombed first time. They ran really badly, and it took him 2 or 3 runs to find the key to them. Now, I don't think it's going to make a great deal of difference going from Elliott to Henry de Bromhead or to Mullins. They're all absolutely top-class trainers who know exactly what they're doing. But I don't think it's a positive to have that disruption just a couple of weeks before the festival.
What about you, Ed?
Yeah, I suppose the positive is it's so close to the Cheltenham Festival. You'd think pretty much 95% of the work they're going to do is already put in place. So it would be more. I was actually listening to someone who, a previous show jumper who discussed the kind of event where they had to move horses across continents, and they said it's more of a fact if you got there. If this was 2 months ago, and there was time for a totally new routine to kind of bed in with different feed, different hay, different work times, that would arguably be a bigger problem because you would be switching up a routine of 3 or 4 years and then you'd be suddenly getting into a really new one in the space of 2 months. It's such kind of 11th hour. I suppose it's not much different than going on the ferry and coming over here, a week before the festival. So I'm not overly concerned about that in itself. But as Stephen says, it's hard to say it's a positive, but we're guessing essentially as to what effect they will have on the horses.
It was great to catch up with trainer Gary Moore a little bit earlier, principally talking about Goshen. He certainly seems quite bullish about him going towards the Champion Hurdle, where currently he's a 4-1 chance, but he doesn't seem too concerned about Epatante, Honeysuckle. He feels he's got the right horse to win, Stephen.
Well, it's about prices in the going, Shane, I think. I think there's more negatives than positives about Goshen. He's had well-documented physical problems. I know Gary made a very cogent case and found reasons as to why he ran poorly on the flat and then abysmally at Cheltenham when he stopped to absolutely nothing. I mean, that was a really bad run. I mean, I must admit and put my hands up, I got him completely wrong at Wincanton the other day. He won by 2 hurdles on soft ground. I suspect that was more about Song for Someone not running his race than Goshen suddenly coming back, but I could be wrong about that. I think the key with Goshen is he could do with lots of rain. At the moment, Cheltenham's heading towards good, as Ed mentioned a minute ago. If they got a deluge, Goshen would be a massive runner and probably would be a 4-1 chance on form for the Champion Hurdle. At the moment, it's good to soft. He's had well-documented physical problems. I couldn't dream of backing him at 4-1. If I'm being truthful, I'd be looking to lay him a place.
He's still a baby as a 5-year-old in national hunt terms, but 5-year-olds can win the race. Where do you assess him as a horse, where he is now, but also going to the future? Would you like to perhaps wait another season or 2 before you think he could win a race like the Champion Hurdle?
I mean, he clearly can win this year's Champion Hurdle, but the value angle has gone now, hasn't he? He was 20-1 or bigger prior to the Wincanton run, and he could have won that Wincanton race in any more spectacular fashion, could he? Head in his chest, won by half the track. If you take the form literally, I mean, he's run to remark in the mid-170s, which puts him in Istabrack kind of company. So it clearly there's an element, he has really run a stormer, and Song for Someone has run massively below par. The truth is, his actual run was probably somewhere in the middle, and it's where we kind of weigh that up. As a 4-1 shot, not for me. On soft ground, I think he would have a chance. Look, he seems quite a fizzy horse on the track. That is the problem. And when you say looking to the future with him, I wonder whether this is a horse with an exciting but very limited shelf life. I can't imagine him being a kind of Bouverdare in 5 years' time from now. He's still rocking up to Champion Hurdle trials. It's kind of the kitchen sink goes in, doesn't it, when he goes on the racecourse? And that's what makes him so exciting. And I mean, if you go back to last year's Triumph Hurdle form, that is now looking phenomenal. I mean, you would have had All Mankind and Aspire Tower beaten 15 lengths. If you start going through that, that's very good form with hindsight, isn't it? So, in answer to the question, yes, I think he could easily win the Champion Hurdle. We've seen it in the past. It's absolutely daft to write off some of these horses. I just don't think, unless the weather changes, I don't think he's going to have the conditions in his favour. But essentially, from a punting perspective, I think all value is now totally dried up.
All right, great points there from a punting perspective, from a narrative perspective with all the drama of what happened last year. I can't wait to see what he might do this year going into the Champion Hurdle. It really is going to be one of the most exciting races of the week. Well, we always talk about Willie Mullins on this show because he is arguably the biggest name in jumps racing. He's had a phenomenal run of success, particularly this season. And courtesy of the Jockey Club, we're getting some insight of some of his key contenders.
I'd say if I was talking to you 6 months ago, you probably wouldn't have thought that Appreciated would be a hot favourite for the Supreme.
No, I had him down as a stair. So, but the fact that he has that turn of foot is good too. He owes me. He destroyed a pair of sheepskin gloves on me Saturday evening when I was putting his rug back on him. He got his rug off, but you know, we're here with him, and his two performances have been so good up to now. So we're very pleased with him. You know, what he did at Christmas was terrific. I'm just wondering, was he as good in himself at the Dublin Racing Festival, or was it a better race? But he did what he had when he had to. And I suppose we all thought, looking at it, that, wow, he's in trouble maybe turning for home. But yet when Ballyadam came to him, you know, he got the job done, which is a sign of a good horse. I'm looking forward to running him. He's we bought him, I think, out of an English point to point, and we always knew he could gallop, but to gallop and jump the way he does over fences is really exciting. You know, you buy horses hoping that they can do something like that. It takes you 2 or 3 years to find out that by the time you probably win a bumper, a hurdle, and then go chasing. And they don't all turn out like that. So it's nice to have one like him.
Could Franco de Porta, Grade 1 winner Christmas, join him?
I think so. I know the Irish race, the Irish Arkle, is 2 miles, 1 and 100 yards, and the Cheltenham version is probably a furlong and a half shorter. But that'll probably be run at a very, very fast pace and up that hill, even though I know Leopardstown is a huge test. I think we would have to think about going there. You know, it's the obvious thing to me that he would be, you know, we'd have one horse up towards the front and the other fellow sort of whipping in. Hopefully, if the race falls apart, that he might do what he did at Christmas.
I'm sure one stat that's following you around everywhere, Willie, like a bad smell that you're mad to get rid of, is the fact that the Champion Chase, the Betway sponsor Queen Mother Champion Chase, is the only championship race at the Cheltenham Festival that you've yet to win. And you'll be keeping toes and fingers and ears and eyes crossed that Chacun Pour Soi will get there in one piece.
Hopefully, and give us a chance to try and put that away. But he's in great form since. He does everything right. And that's all. Fingers crossed. Dermot rides him, and there's never anything wrong with him. Until the morning of the race last year. He's had his troubles early on in his career, but now everything is settled down. He just goes up to gallop every morning, comes home, does his work. You know, he's very good.
Thanks to our friends at the Jockey Club there for that interview with Willie Mullins. Don't like the thoughts of Appreciated having to owe him a new pair of gloves there, Stephen. You wouldn't want to owe Willie in that circumstance, but I think he might be able to repay him with a big performance at Cheltenham this year.
I mean, he does really look like he is a rock-solid favourite. I think he's around about 2-1. I was just looking just now. Willie Mullins has got 7 horses at 2-1 or less in the graded races. That's before you get onto the handicap. So he won several of those last year as well. It does look like he's going to have a fantastic time of things. And I suspect while all their horses' form is on soft ground, a lot of them are sort of strong travelling, smart, top-class performers. They won't mind if it's good ground, to be honest. It's going to be no inconvenience to them. They're not short of speed, horses like Chacun Pour Soi. Even Appreciated, who already showed that he stays 2 mile 4. He's shown really smart turn of foot to win in Ireland twice already this winter. I think he's set for a fantastic time. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't end up having 10 winners himself, let alone just the Irish horses.
It's extraordinary, as Stephen mentioned there, Ed, to have 7 runners at 2-1 or shorter. And I think, as we mentioned last week, of the 28 races scheduled for Cheltenham, he's currently got the ruling favourite in 12 of those. It's a remarkable state of strength from his stable. Do you think he could break all records this year?
Quite possibly, yes, absolutely. I mean, on the form book, he's got quite a few streets ahead of the others, don't they? I mean, likes of Monkfish, Chacun Pour Soi. But again, we've touched upon this in the past, the previous shows, isn't it? I think, well, I haven't got the stats in front of me now, and I've forgotten them, but it was something ridiculous, like only one of 6 odds-on favourites won at the festival last year, and only 2 of 16 that were shorter than 2-1 actually ended up winning. Like, there's almost this little bit of attitude of, oh, well, let's just hand the prizes out now. The races are already run and we don't need to bother with them. It's never that straightforward. We see it year in, year out. But joking aside, yeah, this does look... I mean, we say it every year, Mullins seems to have a ridiculously strong string. And obviously with the events that are going on with Gordon Elliott as well, his strength looks even stronger in many respects because a lot of Gordon's... horses have been diluted, haven't they? So, look, I just think, yeah, Willie Mullins is in for a cracking time, and double figures is not inconceivable at all if you manage to rack up that amount of winners at the Cheltenham Festival.
Well, Nicky Henderson will certainly be doing everything he can to try and slow the onslaught of the Irish success at Cheltenham. And we've talked about Nicky over the past few weeks, particularly around making announcements as to which race he'd like horses to be targeting and, of course, altered programs for the likes of Altior. But let's spend a bit of time talking a bit more detail about his major chances for the festival this year. And we'll start with one of the shortest prize favourites for the week, Stephen, in Shishkin, who's currently a 10-11 favourite, so an odds-on favourite for the Sporting Life Arkle Challenge Trophy. He is an exceptionally gifted horse. At that price, are you happy with him?
Yeah, I can't oppose him. I think he's the one English banker out of 28 races. He's 3 from 3 over fences. He's flown around Kempton on pretty decentish soft ground. He went to Doncaster, jumped superbly round there. He's got loads of scope. He won the Supreme last year when lots of things went wrong for him under de Boinville. That's always a possibility with de Boinville, but on chasers, positively ridden, he's a perfectly competent horseman. I think Shishkin will scare off a lot of the opposition. They've got lots of other targets they could run in. I think it'll be a small field. He'll end up 6-4 on, and I think he'll probably win, barring accidents. Yeah,
Ed, just to follow on what Stephen has said there, he looks like he should be able to dominate any of his rivals in that race. From a tactical perspective, you'd expect him to be in the right spot from the outset.
Yeah, I'd imagine we've discussed this in the previous show. I think Energamine and All Mankind are going to go hammer and tongs at the front of affairs, and I imagine this is going to cut up into a fairly small field. I've got it circled in around 8 runners at the moment. I looked at the market last night. Who I actually think will turn up, and I imagine Nico will try and be a little bit patient. He wouldn't want to get drawn into a battle too soon. I think he's the most likely winner. The one kind of proviso I would have would be if the ground did turn to absolute pop and the weather was of Michael Fish proportions, we end up with about 100 millimetres the weekend before. We got a proper softer, heavy ground meeting. That would just would make me nervous because I think Energamine clearly stays further and loves that ground, and I think that would narrow the gap, shall we say. But let's not forget, people do seem to forget, for all Nicky Henderson harps on about good ground for Shishkin, I say the ground was pretty much soft to heavy on the opening day last year in the Supreme Novices, and he gutsed it out as well as showed his class and nearly got brought down. I think he's the most likely winner, and in terms of the home defence, if you like, I flagged up there's 2 horses for the meeting which I think have got a good chance. Is Tritonic for Alan King and the Triumph, and other than that, one you'd be fairly confident on, Shishkin would be at the top of the list.
Epatante, who's one of the favourites for the Unibet Champion Hurdle. She's currently at 7-2, best price across most markets. Looks to be a fascinating clash with Goshen, Honeysuckle and Epatante. How are you assessing her, Stephen?
I think it's a race that's got more interesting, and it's certainly got more competitive with Goshen coming into things. Epatante, she's got a bit to prove after Kempton. She did clip a couple of hurdles there. There have been lots of stories since. Was she in season? Did she tweak her back? They've done certain things to her, apparently. Henderson's decided to go there fresh, which is a positive 3 months on. I think she's another one. If it's good ground, she's a strong traveller with a really smart turn of foot. I think she's probably a lot quicker than Honeysuckle or Goshen. If it's soft ground, it becomes a grinding slog. Then things perhaps tilt more in Goshen's favour and Honeysuckle's favour, who also stays a lot further, I think. I think Epatante's around about 5-2. I think a lot will depend upon what her owner does on the day, punting-wise. These sort of JP horses can end up 6-4 and make you look ridiculous, or 9-2 if there's a negative story about them. I mean, I always remember the old fogies. will remember Isterbrack pulling up in the Champion Hurdle when there was all sorts of money for other horses on the day, but that's probably a story for another time. But the market with these horses, even though it's Grade 1 racing, they're all trying, all doing their best. The stable confidence behind them is key in the last half an hour before the race. It's fascinating. Sometimes the markets are just as interesting as the races themselves.
Aside from using old fogies there, Stephen, I did like the way that you described her acceleration. So, Ed, I think that's going to be crucial when it comes to winning this race. It's going to be the horse that can really turn it on the most, I think, over the concluding stages as they climb the hill at Cheltenham. Yeah,
absolutely. It's an interesting dynamic, isn't it? With Honeysuckle on the old course, on better ground. Will that suit Goshen? We've already touched upon. I'm quite sat on the fence with Epatante. There's two ways of looking at it. You're getting 7-2 about a mare which absolutely hacked up in this race last year. On her comeback this season, looked absolutely phenomenal, and whose back class totally entitles her to be around the 6-4, 7-4 mark. Or then, are you then backing a horse at 7-2 who, when you break down and look at the actual facts, is arriving here on the back of being thumped 3 months previously? It's one of those two things, isn't it? It's not exactly an ideal prep going into the Champion Hurdle. I think, the official line is kissing spines. They've come up with now is what the problem was. She's had physio on her back. I don't know, really. It's one of those. The price could look absolutely ridiculous on the day. If it's good to soft, she just goes 5 lengths clear. We'll be sitting there going, oh, for goodness sake. And I suppose part of the price you've got to factor in is the fact her trainers trained 62 Cheltenham Festival winners, and you've got to put a lot of faith in that he will get her back to her best on the day. So I don't know what to make of her. And I do think Steve says ground. We say it every year, but I think especially this year, a lot of protagonists, I think, could have an £8 to £10 swing on their ability, depending on whether we're looking at good ground or soft or heavy.
Yeah, really good insight there. Let's talk about Nicky's runner in the Close Brothers Mares Hurdle. He's got Dame de Compagnie, who's currently at around 9-1. To my eye, Stephen, that looks like a good each-way option for the race.
Yeah, she's an interesting one. Is she definitely going for that race? Because they've been chasing with her, and she jumped quite well and was quite impressive, I thought. If you go back to her win in the Coral Cup in 2020, when she landed quite a hefty gamble by pure coincidence, really impressive. That form has worked out really well. So she's done it at Cheltenham. She's versatile with regard to the ground. She's another one with a good turn of foot. It's just, would they go back over hurdles having tried chasing with success? She's an interesting one. I think 9-1 is a very fair price on form if you know she's definitely going for the race.
Ed, which direction would you go if she was yours?
Yeah, definitely. I've actually backed her for this race. Listening to Nicky Henderson press release, it sounds, for want of a better phrase, about 90% she will line up on this. Henderson's justification that they can't really go into the festival on the back of what happened at Sandown over fences. So, and we know she acts over the track and over the trip, over hurdles. And yeah, obviously Concertista, it looks like this is, again, going to cut up to about 7 or 8 runner race. You're going to have Concertista and potentially Roxana, and then Dame de Compagnie, and then you're into your kind of 14-1 or pluses. And I think, yeah, she's 9-1 still. I think she could go off around 11-2, 6-1 marker. I think she's solid and should be there or thereabouts in frame. And I don't think if she got quicker ground, that wouldn't inconvenience her too either. Whereas I think Concertista is quite happy. She's got a bit of a knee action on her, that mare. You watched the way she won last year. I think soft ground would definitely play to her strengths, shall we say. So, and there's also the opportunity Roxana could move to the stairs. Dan Skelton said that's not been totally ruled out yet, especially if ground did dry up. So lots of imponderables. I think Dame de Compagnie will run, and I think she's a fair each way bet.
Do you guys think that we could see a fairy tale with Altior? I know that we've sort of potted him over the past few weeks, but as we get closer to the Cheltenham Festival, he's currently 7-1 for the Betway Queen Mother Champion Chase. It'd be a great story if Nicky could weave some magic and get him back to winning ways, Stephen.
Well, he's done it before with Sprinter Sacre, hasn't he? I'd be absolutely amazed. I think he looked a completely gone horse at Kempton. He will have been fit for that. I don't think... I mean, you've read reports he's working well at home. He's carrying his head close to the floor when he's galloping again. Not for me. I'll be absolutely amazed, to be honest. We've said this in our shows before with horses like Tiger Roll, Plan des Oboes, Surname. Once they've gone, they've gone. And backing him at 7-1 because of something he did 2 or 3 years ago, not for me.
Ed, are you writing him off completely as we get closer to the event?
No, only for the fact that of what he has done previously, and that Chacun Pour Soi has never run at Cheltenham before from that angle, if you see what I'm saying. Sometimes you do just get the beef or salmon syndrome where horses turn up to a course and do not act, so you can never rule that out. Again, with Altior, is like my head and my stats and what I've seen just tell me, look, you could easily run into a place. I don't think that's written out, shall we say, but I just can't. My head tells me he can't win it. My heart would love to see him win it. And then listening to the great journalist Alistair Down the other day saying 7-1 on Altior is the most absurdly overpriced horse of the entire Cheltenham Festival. He thinks he'd have him about a quarter of it. So it's fascinating game of opinions, isn't it, really? I don't really know what to make of it. I think he will run really well without winning. I think he could easily finish third and kind of go out on his shield, if you like. I'm not going to carry a penny of my money, but crikey, if he was there jumping the last of a chance, I'll be absolutely screaming at the television set.
I think that's actually another point, and that's what's amazing about an event like the Cheltenham Festival. You could actually back against a horse, but there are always so many great stories that if they do turn their form around or return to days of old, like we've seen in the past, it is such a momentous occasion, and it can be something that really tugs at the heartstrings a little bit. So hopefully we'll see Altior run to his very best. Let's talk about some other contenders from the Nicky Henderson yard. I'll talk now about All Art, Stephen. As a prospect going to the festival, are you happy to be with All Art?
I think he's more of an Aintree horse. I think he definitely wants good ground. He's 1 from 2 over fences so far. He fell at the 8th at Haydock last time, but his Ascot form, his jumping warmed up through that race, and it was an impressive performance. The only thing is when you read form back, he beat Fiddler on the Roof that day. He was a bit of a disappointing horse of the Tizzards. I think Allard, I don't see him as a storming up the hill at Cheltenham horse. I think he's more of a flat track, good ground in the spring type, and I'd rather back him at Aintree. And those are comments that I think probably also apply a bit to Chantry House, who's another one with a little bit to prove. I think he's more of a spring horse, a strong traveller with a turn of foot, rather than a slogger up the hill at Cheltenham.
Ed, what about you from All Art and Chantry House perspective? Would you have them at the festival?
Well, All Art's had his issues, of course. He fell. He's going back over hurdles and goes to the Coral Cup, I believe. You could argue he's still unexposed, and that ran really well in the Hot Supreme last year. But again, the price has kind of shrunk in recent days. I slightly disagree with Stephen in regards to Chantry House. I actually think he's the one who could really serve it up to Envoy Allen, especially if a change of routines and feeds and hay or whatever have done for the undefeated beast. But he won, how should we say, by default on his chase debut at Ascot, and then ran deplorably at Cheltenham where it looked so something totally amiss. Again, he's had minor back surgery and physio and all sorts, and I was quite encouraged by his Reddit Weatherby the other day on pretty tacky ground. What I was most enthusiastic about was the manner in which he jumped. So you always worry about a horse who's had back problems, whether they want to go through it going forward over the fences. But he jumped well. He was giving weight to a useful horse, and he travelled well. He quickened away nicely. Obviously, he's got that form in the book at Cheltenham from the Supreme last year behind Shishkin and Abracadabras when finishing third. I mean, that looks pretty red-hot form now, doesn't it, with hindsight? And yeah, I think Chantry House is a real player in the marsh. I definitely wouldn't be ruling out his chances at Cheltenham Festival.
Can you guys give a chance to Champagne Platinum at the festival this year? Another promising prospect from Nicky Henderson's yard, Stephen?
Yeah, he ran a lot better the other day, and he's a bit of a horse who's got a bit lost in the wilderness, but he was much better at Haydock. He finished second behind Bushy Park, who's been a revelation for Kirby in the north this season. I think he's won 4 or 5 handicaps. He actually started off at Hexham Bushy Park when they backed him from a huge price down to a short price, and he won by about 4 hurdles. Kirby is a very shrewd trainer. So that form's pretty good. Champagne Platinum, he'd need to take another step forward. He's 0 from 4 over fences. Again, it'll be interesting to see where Henderson runs him. He has been pretty difficult to place, but if he builds on last time, he'd be an interesting runner.
Ed, what's your views with him?
He's one of my strongest handicap fancies of the festival at this stage. The per temps final. How should we say, for want of getting into libel issues, he was given a patient ride last time out at Haydock. I think it has to be said. On soft ground, they didn't quite go to town with him. They looked after him with other targets in mind. They had to run him, finish him in the top 6 there to get qualified for the festival. Made eye-catching late headway into second. The connections, JP McManus. He's in here off 138. I really like. Again, the price has gone. He's now single figures. He was 20-1 not that long ago. I think he's a major player in the per temps final. I'd be shocked if he gets around. If he was out the 4, I'd be very shocked.
And we'll talk now about Champ, who made a really, really pleasing resumption 2 weeks ago, heading towards the Gold Cup. One of the big name runners for Nicky Henderson throughout the week. Stephen, where do you assess him?
I mean, at a horse I got completely wrong on his comeback. I thought he'd be schooled round negatively in rear, having gone for a huge drift beforehand. In fact, they gunned him from the tape and he put in his best round of jumping ever over fences. He was really impressive. In some ways, the flip side of that is I was quite disappointed how easily Sco Royale went straight past him. Now, that might be sort of me trying to be a contrarian because I got the horse completely wrong beforehand, but I thought he was seen to maximum effect at Newbury. They're going to ride him with a lot more patience in the Gold Cup. He's not absolutely guaranteed to stay. Before he won at Cheltenham last year, I wasn't sure he'd get up the hill. So maybe he's just a horse I've got completely wrong. But 3 Mile 2, in my mind, the Irish form is miles in advance of anything that the UK horses have done. And I think Champ is another one of these horses who's a very, very bad price, to be truthful. I'll be looking to lay him a place. I think he's, first of all, got the potential to go on the floor if he's ridden with the usual patience back over a longer trip. And I'm not sure he's good enough either.
All right, Ed, your view?
Again, I'm fence sitting in the sense that I could see him winning a Gold Cup, but I also think the value, again, I'm coming from a betting perspective, it's almost bonkers. He's now shortened into 5-1 on the basis of finishing runner-up in a 2-mile chase. Look, he's clearly got. He won the RSA last year. He got up the hill fine. It looked like a lot of his jumping deficiencies had been ironed out over that 2-mile test. Yes, he's got a totally different ball game scenario over 3.25 miles at Cheltenham. But if he gets round, I think he'll stay. And I can't rule him out from winning. But again, he's now short as 5-1 to win the Gold Cup on essentially having done nothing for a year. Not for me at the prices.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. It looks a crazy price, despite the fact that he did run so well at his reappearance. Guys, I'll put you on the spot. Does Nicky Henderson have a banker that we could get around for the Cheltenham Festival this year for the week, Stephen?
I'm going to be boring and say Shishkin. I know he's the shortest price, but I've been so impressed with how he jumps, and he's obviously going to take an awful lot of beating.
What about you, Ed?
I'm 20 seconds, obviously Shishkin. A horse we haven't mentioned, I think he's got a really good chance of the Ryanair chase, is Mr. Fisher. I think the ground could come right for him. I think he's got a cracking chance. I think Champagne Platinum will be at least placed in the per attempts final. And there's one at slightly bigger prices, although the price is shrinking as I even talk. Caribbean Boy for the plate as a horse. And when I was speaking to your producer, Hans, early in the week, I think it was 25-1. By the time I told him it was 20-1, the weights came out as in 16-1. And I got an email from Hans this morning saying he's now in around as short as 12. So you might as well rip this up because the whole angle was the value perspective. But yeah, Caribbean Boy goes for the plate off 153. I think he's got a big chance. He'll want better ground. He disappointed last time out of the minimum trip on heavy. But when he won a grade 2 at Newbury, he pinged off a decent surface and he still had exposed. So, yeah, it's a few there. Henderson's got a few sneaking under the radar. Obviously, all the talk's been about the Irish, but actually when you boil it down, you start looking at who's going to turn up where. Nicky Henderson, as you kind of expect from a man of his stature, does have a pretty solid hand going to the Cheltenham Festival.
All right, the power of long shot Ted there, bringing in the price on a horse from the big price in.
My 10p each way has had no effect today. Absolutely no effect.
All right, guys, great to get your thoughts there on champion trainer Nicky Henderson and his runners towards the Cheltenham Festival. Let's have a look at the big races coming up this weekend. Guys, it's great to see that we've still got some feature races in the build-up to the Cheltenham Festival that we can sink our teeth into. And we'll start with Kelso, where this weekend we've got the running of the Grade 2 Bet365 Premier Novices Hurdle. Stephen, who do you like in the race?
Well, it's good to soft ground at the minute at Kelso. They have got showers forecast. I'm hoping they avoid it and it stays decent ground. The one I like is Paul Nicholls' Lucky One. Now, he's taken time to adjust since arriving from Willie Mullins. He ran abysmally first go at Hereford, but he then flew round Southwell on decent ground. And last time out at Wincanton, he was really impressive. And the horse he beat 20 lengths there, Natural History, came out and won at Plumpton in the week, albeit in a pretty ordinary handicap. But I believe he's one of Gary Moore's runners, maybe who might go for the county hurdle. So there's nothing wrong with that form. Lucky One is a free-going front runner. Kelso's a much stiffer track, But I think on good to soft ground, it was heavy at Wincanton. He'll take an awful lot of catching. He's got a terrific high cruising speed. I think he'll soon be 5 lengths clear under Cobden, and hopefully he'll be able to maintain the gallop. The danger looks to be My Drogo of Dan Skelton, who, as we've mentioned before, is absolutely flying at the minute.
Ed, which way are you looking at the race?
Yeah, I'd be with the flying Dan Skelton here and my Drogo. I think it's a stiff track. I think his step up in trip will suit. I think Dan Skelton alluded to that after his last run. Thinks next year will be a very good 2.5 mile chaser, if you like. I think Showers Arrival only enhanced this horse's claim. Step up in trip will. I mean, the negative is he's penalised for his Grade 2 win. But then, obviously, he deserves that penalty for winning a Grade 2. And that form of that Grade 2 win at Ascot has worked out as a treat, hasn't it? Because he had Soaring Glory behind him, and that horse has gone on to win the Betfair Hurdle. So I think his form looks rock solid. Skelton's a flying. Ground should be fine. Trip should be fine. I think my Drogo is very, very... he has very, very strong claims here.
Stephen, do you like anything in the listed Bet365 Premier Chase?
That's the 240, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, I actually quite think... There's one really overpriced here. Ian Jardine's Cool Mix. Now on the ratings, he's got about £25 to find. So I'm slipping into long shot Ted territory here. But
careful.
He's only run once over this trip, amazingly, in 14 runs over fences. And he finished a bit of an unlucky third in a very strong handicap. Now this is obviously a valuable listed prize. But ASO, who's 5-2 favourite at the moment, is 11 years old. He's old enough to smoke. 2 for Gold can clout these fences. He's not 100% reliable, and I think he's best when he leads on his own, which looks unlikely to happen. There's a couple of other front runners in the race. Cloth Cap, well, he's going to go to the Grand National. I think this is a prep. I don't think they'll gun him from the front in this race. So there's holes in the front of the market, and while Cool Mix has got loads to find on the ratings, I think £25, he's a sound jumping, reliable sort who's going to give his running. I'm not saying he'll win or he's a nap or anything, but he's going to be a huge price, probably bigger on the exchanges, and I don't think he'll be that far away. I suspect with horses at this stage of their careers like ASO, they're not quite worth the rating they've got, and maybe Cool Mix could spring a surprise.
Which way do you want to go, Ed?
I'll be tentatively with 2 for Gold, but it's a bit of a nasty race from a betting perspective. You've got those experienced horses. You don't quite know if they can go to the well one more time, if you like. At least 2 for Gold has got his confidence back. I think kind of 3 miles plus, the old petrol gauge comes on, back over 2.5 last time he looked to right. I think if ground conditions stay decent, 2 miles 7 here, should get away with the trip. Whether he could dominate or not, I'm not sure, but he's still relatively unexposed, would be my line point, compared to the likes of your Lakeview lads and your ASOs. You can kind of know where you are with those. So a tentative tip, but yeah, 2 for Gold as long as ground stays decent.
Newbury will play host to the Grade 3 Bet Victor Greatwood Gold Cup. Stephen, your thoughts on this race?
I quite like Strong Pursuit. I mean, he's another one. He's getting on a bit. But Philip Hobbs, we talked about him before. He was really struggling for a few months before Christmas when Strong Pursuit ran so badly last time. He's been freshened up. Now, I'm looking at the ground at Newbury. It looks like it might be on the faster side of good if they miss the showers. I think Strong Pursuit is a really good galloper, will love decent ground. He hasn't had it for a very long time. If he bounces back, he's very well treated.
Ed, your thoughts?
No great value, but I think Grand Sancy's very solid here. I think Paul Nicholls won this race 9 times, or some absolute bonkers record like that. And this horse has clearly had his issues. I think he's had his win looked at after disappointing last time out. A couple of other niggly things, which is why he hasn't been seen on the track that much this season. But if you go back to his penultimate start at Chepstow, I mean, he thumped, what was the horse, Fergal O'Brien's Paint the Dream. He smashed him up 13 lengths. That horse has gone on and finished 3rd in a Grade 1. And I think the return to left-handed track is key here. When he ran in the Rising Stars, he was diving out at every obstacle on a right-handed track. So left-handed track, unexposed. He's got a load of form on good ground. Again, not really one for me at the prices, but I think he's a solid favourite. He's the most likely winner for, as I say, a stable, which, just on a side point, at this time of year, everything's centred around Cheltenham. Paul Nicholls is quite funny. You listen to him. He's pretty much been talking about this weekend an entry for a lot of his horses, and that kind of underlines why he's such a genius. He places his horses so well, and the fact he's won this race 9 times on the eve of the Cheltenham Festival is a testament to that. He clearly finds a horse which he can target at this meeting from a long way out and gets the job done more often than not.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic insight that you provided there on that race. The other feature on the weekend is at Doncaster, the listed Virgin Bet Mares Novices Hurdle. Stephen, Ed's already said he's got no interest in this race to me, but can we get something from you?
Well, I quite like Alpha Carenet of Ollie Murphy. Again, a yard who struggled before Christmas, now going a lot better. They've got loads of nice young horses. Again, ground dependent. I think when she disappointed at Taunton last time, it was much softer than good to soft, and she got very tired. Her previous forms worked out well on decent ground at Market Raisin. She steps right up to 3 miles. That could suit her. I think she'll be a double-figure price. She's fresh. Perhaps she can improve past those with higher ratings, but it'll be very small stakes.
All right, guys, best bets for the weekend. Stephen, I'll start with you.
I think my nap is Lucky One in the 1:30 at Kelso. Make all the running. Hopefully the ground will be good. They won't see him.
What about you, Ed?
I'm going to take Stephen on here. I'm my Drogo in the same race. I think he's rock solid. And if I can have a final 15-second rant, because I've had 5 cups of coffee this morning. Tritonic. Tritonic for the Triumph Hurdle. Oh, for goodness sake, it's driving me mad on social media. His sectionals between the 4th and 3rd last were 0.2 slower than the concluding handicap. Look, he absolutely smashed up his rivals in the Adonis on his 2nd ever start over hurdles. He's unbeaten. Anakin has a phenomenal record. The Irish will not hear of defeat for their horses in a lot of races, including the Triumph. I think Tritonic is absolutely fantastic bet, even at his price now, to win the Triumph Hurdle on Gold Cup Day.
Good work by you. I think you've just opened up something there where we could potentially get a coffee company sponsoring your segment based on how much you're drinking in the morning. But I should give you both a pat on the back because you were quite bullish about Tritonic going into last weekend's race. So let's hope he can progress. All right, one last point then on a jump to it bet now for Cheltenham 2 weeks out. Stephen, we've heard from Ed, Tritonic. Who are you going for?
Well, I really like Third Time Lucky for the County Hurdle. I think the key is good ground. He's a free-going sort who's been winning impressively on ground he doesn't like all winter. He's run twice at Cheltenham. He finished 4th in the Champion Bumper last year. He finished 2nd behind 4 Pleasure in a race where the winner stole 25 lengths at halfway, and he was the only one to close him down. That rival's come out and run a blinder on handicap debut at Newbury at last weekend. Well beaten in the end, but breezed off at a really fast pace. I think Third Time Lucky is also in the Supreme, but Dan Skelton has said this week that definitely going for the county. 16-1, 14-1. Skelton wins this race. He's won it with Mohamed twice, Chittibello. He's laid Third Time Lucky out. Good ground. He'll end up 6-1 favourite and sprint clear up the hill. And by the way, Harry Skelton will just about be hitting the front to be champion jockey at this time at Cheltenham, hopefully. They're really trying for him to win it. I know Dan's going to be running all sorts of horses in, maybe in Sellers Claim as anything, over the next couple of months to try and get Harry to be champion jockey. So that's something to look out for as well.
I might have to check him out for markets for what price he is for the leading jockey of the festival. Ed, any more to add other than Tritonic?
Just the one I touched upon earlier. I thought Caribbean Boy for the plate. That comes on the Thursday of the Cheltenham Festival. Simon Monier, Isaac Sway colours. Nicky Henderson said the price has been shrinking in recent days, around a 25-1 shot only at the start of the week. Henderson's confirmed this is the race he'll be going for. He dropped back to 2 miles on very deep ground last time out. It did not suit him at all, but to his credit, he did plug on up Sandown Hill. He's unexposed, back to 2.5, and crucially, maintain a bit of spring ground at the Cheltenham Festival. I love the manner in which this horse jumped around Newbury on his seasonal reappearance to win a Grade 2, and I think he's a rock solid each way player. Yeah, Caribbean Boy each way in the plates on the Thursday of the Cheltenham Festival.
Great work today, guys, and looking forward to next week's show. We'll have an extended preview going through all of the big races to get your thoughts on who will come out on top ahead of the Cheltenham Festival. Great to catch up. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Shane.
Cheers, Shane.
And there's Stephen Harris and Ed Quigley. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, unfortunately, Paddy Flood was unavailable this week, but we'll certainly have the Great Irishman back with us next week. Make sure you head to irishracing.com to get all the latest news, race cards, tips and betting information for racing in Ireland and the UK. It's one of the best sites for all levels of information of racing going around. And head to bettingexpert.com to get Stephen Harris's daily tips. Stephen, as I said earlier, has been in fantastic form over the past period of time, tipping plenty of winners and tipping plenty plenty of winners at a decent price too. So hopefully that'll run will continue as we build up towards Cheltenham. Make sure you subscribe to the Betting Expert YouTube channel. Let us know your thoughts. Comment on the shows, even if our French pronunciation may be off on occasion. But we also importantly want to know which horses you think will come out on top in some of the big races ahead of the Cheltenham Festival. Hope you've enjoyed today's edition of Jump To It. We'll see you next week.